So the Proton Felbermeyer livery car closing in behind. And behind them is the, that's not the Hub Auto car, Marcos Gomez. So there's another.
That's one of the Iron
Links cars. Yeah, that's the car. It's not the car of Manuel Agostino. That's the car Claudio Schiavone. That's
no.
down.
That is Andrea Piccini's 75 car. That was the very late addition to the field.
Yeah. Battle for third in GT Pro, going by the Red River Sport Ferrari. That's a GTE AM car, and through goes Nicky Team, with James Collado following him. And who's in the Red River car? Is that Bon Grimes?
No, Charlie Hollings is aboard the car now.
Getting out of the way because they're not paying attention to me. And behind, look at the battle, Dragon Speed. That's the other Dragon Speed car, the second one. That is their lead car, isn't it? That's their regular car. Henrik Hedman under pressure from Matavos. It's not Matavos, it's a car behind him. So it's somebody else who's a lap down, possibly. The Aston and the Ferrari, third and fourth, up the hill, through the Dunlop Bridge, and then plunging down through the S's, past where you would find the fun fair, the barbecues, the beer stands, the freaks, and everything else.
I think that is the recovering EDEX Sport car behind Henrik Hedman, so I think it's looking to unlap itself from the 27.
You might be right. Might well be right. So unlapping itself from 18th in the field, Paul-Luc Chatin. And I'm not sure there's enough beer in Le Mans to reward the IDEX Sport crew for the work that they did to rebuild not one but two cars. It is indeed the IDEX Sport car. Henrik Hedman, the Danish businessman, at the wheel of the white and blue liveried Dragon Speed car. And down the inside, Paul-Luc not allowing the Ferrari to get in his way. I have business here. Stay out of the way, Sunbeam. Alex Lynn leads in GT Pro for Aston Martin ahead of Miguel Molina. The battle you're looking at, and they're looking at, is the battle for third. Nicky Team's Aston Martin versus James Collado's Ferrari. And Paul-Luc Chatin, I don't care if you were a world champion, I'm coming through.
Yeah, the going past the GT Pro cars for Paul-Luc Chatin, these are moves for position.
Yep.
Not at the moment for the LMP2 field.
Slightly unfair battle, as he has a very much quicker car than the GT cars, particularly off the corners. 650 horsepower now in the LMP2 cars. They really are rocket sledges.
Now to 27th overall, the EDEX Sport car.
Now we're hearing from the pit lane from Alex Legui that the right-hand side door, the passenger door, the one he can't reach of the IDEX Sport car, is open, and they're absolutely right. The camera picks it up there, Alan.
He had that problem as well in the warm-up, if we remember. They've repaired the cars overnight because of the big crashes, and they've had a problem with the latches. The latches are very sophisticated, and there's a lot of pressure comes into the cockpit which needs to be released, and if it can't be released, then it does build up a pressure. In the past, we've seen doors being blown off when the catches weren't strong enough, but this one is clearly, it's got enough air pressure to keep it closed, but not actually in position. So he'll have to stop for that.
Yeah, and now that it's been picked up on camera, then race control will hand him a black and orange flag and say, come in and get that sorted. And unfortunately, that's another little issue that they really didn't need. However, is the sun coming out? Do you know, I could swear that looks like a little bit of sunshine down on the Mulsanne Straight, ligne droite des Unodières, as we watch Jeroen Bleekemolen battling with Andrea Piccini's Ferrari behind him, then the purple car, that is the purple car of Jeroen Bleekemolen, then the blue car of Michele Beretta, and behind him, that is the Hub Auto car. So Marcos Gomez has overcome his shock at going fully locked up through this group and has now rejoined at the back. That Hub Auto car is going quickly.
It is. This is the battle for 8th, 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th in class.
And behind the yellow Ferrari is the next car up. That's Jan Magnussen. Well, at least he's in a yellow car, even if it doesn't have a Corvette V8 at the front.
Contractual.
Do you think that is it? You're allowed to ride something else, but it's got to be yellow. Well, in which case he had a choice of two Ferraris here, didn't he? Much more yellow would have been the car guy's MR racing car, but he's got a degree of yellow on JMW.
There's Pantone specificity in his contract.
Is there indeed? I wonder if that extends to Kevin Magnussen's contract as well. We'll wait and see. Out of the slowest corner on the circuit, Arnage. And down on the public road that they were racing in the early 1920s and 30s. And of course, when you watch it in the Steve McQueen film, all those hedges are much closer. There were ditches on the side that no longer exist. There were milestone or kilometre stone markers. They came straight down there through Maison Blanche, which is now sidestepped by these phenomenally quick Porsche curves. And through Maison Blanche, they then shot past the pits. There were no chicanes until 1967 or 8, I think. It might have been the 68 race that had a first ever chicane before the pit lane. And a throwback to the late 1980s, early 1990s, there's a floppy on track.
It's a floppy on track, but an overtaking about to happen. Now the Ferrari's got a nice run round the outside. The Aston Martin got held up a little bit going in, half sort of attempt to overtake there by Nicky Thiem, but never quite got it done, and the Ferrari's through into second.
Yeah, Nicky Thiem trying to make the Ferrari go the long way round both him and the Iron Dames car in front, but in the end he wasn't quite as quick as the Ferrari. So the Iron Dames Ferrari, Manuela Gosner, number 85 car, 16th in the GTE Anfield, is the undoing there unwittingly of Nicky Thiem. The Aston Martin just catching her quite the wrong place, and through goes James Calado up into third place. So Ferrari now second and third. Aston Martin, who were 1-2, are now first and fourth. How things change as tyres wear and fuel burns off.
Absolutely, 29 car battling back. You're absolutely right. Ford chicane came in 1968, a year before Armco barrier was added to the circuit.
Yeah. Watch the Steve McQueen film. It's the same, but it is very, very different. And I suppose that's true for this year. 20 seconds added to the next pit stop of car 21. So Panis Racing are having a bit of a trying time.
Well, that's Dragon Speed, and that's the other car
that is right. Yeah,
that should have taken that pit stop infringement.
Is that because of that, or is it a different one? Because remember, they had to take something for not slowing down correctly under full course yellow.
They were definitely
zones.
the other 20-second
They had a 20-second penalty for sure. Is that because they did not take it, or is that because they get another penalty for something else?
Well,
hard to tell, isn't it?
They've just left after a second stop and have not taken what looks to me like to be a regular pit stop
So
timing.
they haven't taken the penalty.
At which point, having not taken it twice now, they are at risk of getting a further penalty here.
You would say first time is you forgotten any. Second time, that is willful.
Yeah, we remembered it before the start of the race, so I think they should.
Yes. And Dragon Speed are not first-timers, and they're not rank amateurs. They do know what they're doing, and clearly, therefore, they have not bothered to take the extra 10 seconds or 20 seconds.
28 car with that door still open, pits now, and is heading down to Alex.
Well, that's a shame for them, because they are now out of sync. That may not hurt them. That may come back to them if other things change.
It will drop them back behind the GTs. They've just slogged away to get by because they just rejoined, at least positionally, albeit 2 laps down, or a lap down, the LMP2 train. They've gone by all of the GT field on the lap before the one where they've pitted.
So looking back at the battle for 7th place, that's a floppy. And I tell you what, but it's not very floppy when it hits the front of your car at that sort of speed. Let's hear from the 92 Porsche team. Michael Christensen on board.
Information, Jimmy took left side tyres only. Left side tyres for Jimmy. Yeah, so he just let me back. Everybody told you. Jimmy knows that you are coming on new tyres. Jimmy knows you are coming on new tyres. Yeah, because I'm looking for another behind me. Understood.
Remember the last time there was a conversation from Jimmy Bruni? What did he say, Martin?
That was not the answer to the question that he was hoping to get, was it? Jimmy knows you're on quicker tyres, so he'll let me by, right? He knows you're on quicker tyres. That wasn't a yes, was it?
Yeah, but it's good enough, he knows. And after the last time, though, Jimmy Bruni was complaining that he got a bit of a hit on the way past as well. The two Porsches have got to be very careful. They can't race themselves. You know, we're 1.5 hours in. I know it's very difficult, and I know that adrenaline and focus and everything else. As the Rebellion's into bits, that's the number 3 car.
Ooh.
And that was in 4th place with Nat Berton at the wheel. There's an engine cover change.
Yes.
Has it become dislodged?
Has it become loose? Has it dropped something off it? Have they got a cooling problem? Because before you start pulling radiators out, you try and think why you might have a cooling problem. For some reason, is the ducting on the bodywork, which is identical to the bodywork you ran in practice, not identical in some way?
Have they had a contact at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah, but hold on a second. How many laps since the last pit stop is the thing? Is that in pit stop sequence or out of sequence?
Yeah, it's in sequence because the one car is in now.
92, Michael Christensen worrying about whether 91 is going to let him by. Slightly more worrying is that Tony Villander has just gone by him in the WeatherTech Ferrari like he was standing still. And the WeatherTech car had not had a tyre change, I don't think, but the Porsche had 4 new tyres on the 92 car, left sides only on the 91.
Yeah, Tony Villander, as quick as he ever was in a Ferrari, those with reasonable memories will remember the fantastic run of the Le Mans 24 Hours in 2016 when Ford were coming here to look to dominate, and the one team that stood between them was Risi Competizione at that point, with one Tony Villander in absolutely sparkling form.
He does respond well to this race, doesn't he, Tony? Car number 1 in for Rebellion. Bruno Senna stays in. Fuel going in at Chettilar as well. So who was in that? Giorgio Sernagiotto. So they did start with their gentleman driver. On board the 92 car, down into the left at Indianapolis. On the fastest approaches to a corner on the circuit. He's right up behind Vilander, and there is traffic in front. Of course, with the prototype car, he's going to open the doors. There's the Iron Dames car. 91 goes through. And is that the Risi Ferrari in front? It is the Risi Ferrari in front. So Risi Competizione, Sebastian Bourdais, 5th place in GTE Pro. The red and white Porsche, Jimmy Bruni, the pole sitter, 6th place. Then the AM car of Manuela Gosner with the pink and black livery. Through goes the WeatherTech car. Tony Vilander finds the gap, and that opened up nicely, didn't it, for Michael Christensen? He knew it would. He could plot the trace of the Ferrari in front, knew that it would go by.
He was very, very wide through the right-hander and offline a little bit.
It's because he'd been offline going through past the Ferrari, hadn't he? He had to really tighten it through there and just ran out wide, but he's still with Tony Vilander in the white WeatherTech Ferrari.
So to me, it's looking like the Porsches don't have the straight line speed. Do you think there's anything they can do during the race, Alan, to help their straight line speed? Because look at the Ferrari just drive away.
Well, that they can only do it on engine mapping. Engine mapping means using more fuel and things. So, you know, if they've dropped straight line speed, Peter, at this moment in time, then I think they've got a slight issue. But I would think their biggest issue right now is they don't even look that good in the corners either.
Leader of the pits, 7 Toyota powers into the pits. Mike Conway at the wheel.
Peter Dumbreck joins us in the commentary lineup. And so we'll send Alan off to do something useful like make the tea. We also will be joined by Jamie Campbell-Walter and Ben Constantinos throughout the course of the race. Alex Le Guy and Haley Edmonds. Alan throws his headset down in disgust. He's been dismissed. He's been called into the pits early, just when he was really enjoying himself. Don't worry, he'll be back as the gloaming of the evening arrives. Here is our race leader then, Mike Conway. Had over a minute in hand over Sebastian Buemi, but don't forget, Buemi stopped earlier and stopped earlier the second time as well. Algarve Pro's Simon Trummer versus Ollie Jarvis in G-Drive Racing by Algarve. So these are garage mates duking it out for 8th place.
Also, both regular drivers in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Ollie in the Mazda DPI as a factory driver. Simon, well, a couple of years now in IMSA Racing.
Got a few of those in the field.
Yeah, we have.
Harry Tinknell to name but 1, Jan Magnussen to name but 2. And very, very disappointed not to have the Corvette racing team here, but I think they made a sensible decision quite early in the game that it was unlikely that they'd really get a chance to come to Le Mans. Now then, here's the 38 Jota Sport car, the blue and yellow car, Antonio Felix da Costa, right behind Algarve Pro's Simon Trummer. So Antonio Felix da Costa, since we looked at that battle 2 minutes ago, has dived past Ollie Jarvis. And what's worse for Ollie Jarvis is the 36 Senior Tech Alpine car is closing in from behind as well. Now that won't be for position. Andre Negrão is a long way back in that white-roofed blue car, but it's a distraction he does not need. David Richards, the chairman of Aston Martin Racing.
And Motorsport UK.
And Motorsport UK.
48th position at the moment for the 36 Signatech Alpine. The other little thing about the group of cars we're looking at the moment, headed by that 25 car, then the 38, then the 16, those three all Goodyear rubber.
Yep. In fact, the Algarve Pro car is not the lead Goodyear runner, because the lead Goodyear runner is Will Stevens for Jackie Chan GC Racing, who is currently first in LMP2. And in fact, he's 2.5 seconds ahead of Felipe Albuquerque, so that must have happened in the pit lane, right?
Well, he's did a 53-second stop, so he's double stinting those Goodyears. That's the thing that's made the difference, and that is why we go racing with a tyre battle, isn't it?
Yep.
How far can you stretch them?
Just looking at the
Let's hear from Let's hear from Felipe Albuquerque.
Philippe, so the 39 behind is full position, he's 1 second fast. How the hell can he be so quick? Don't worry about it. He was faster in the pit, but we will have to deal with that later.
He's a bit perplexed, isn't he, about the speed of James Allen at this point of the race. You can hear the frustration in the Portuguese driver's voice. That's not a driver he would normally expect to be going head-to-head with.
Except that he does quite often in European Le Mans Series racing. So
I would not expect him to be above Felipe Albuquerque's pace. Alan?
I think we've just got to remember Albuquerque hasn't seen anyone in this race. He started on pole position, disappeared off into the distance, was following the LMP1 cars, and then suddenly after the pit stop, he's came out after the shuttle through. He's in second, or he's not in second actually, he's down in third because one car didn't take tyres, being the leader in category, Will Stevens, on the Goodyear, and so they didn't take tyres, they just did refuelling, and hence they've got a little bit of a lead right now.
A valid point, actually, if slightly facetious, is he's used to chasing the Baicoles car in LMP1, and okay, this is a non sequitur. Someone's in front of me. Is this for position or is he a lap down?
I wasn't being facetious, by the way, I was being honest.
I know you weren't. So the Algarve Pro car, Simon Trummer, still just ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa. Ollie Jarvis with the orange and black G-Drive colours, one of two G-Drive cars, 26 their regular car, and there is another G-Drive Racing by Algarve car, that is Ollie Jarvis. The regular team car, Jean-Eric Verne, is at the wheel of that, and that is in 7th place in LMP2, 12th place overall. So far, our 5 LMP1 cars are staying ahead of the LMP2 field. So, Peter, everybody's settling down into the race by this stage. You've got an hour and a half under your belt. You've done a couple of pit stops. So now all of those, you know, first night nerve, the jangly bits, they're all starting to soothe, and now we're into a proper race.
That's it. You know, you'll get a lot of teams are still on their first driver as well. But gradually, as this race goes on and you cycle through the drivers, as you say, you calm everyone's nerves. Still getting hotter out there. You mentioned the sun is out, the clouds have broken a bit. It's about 25 degrees and track temperature is about 35 degrees. So we are more closer to what we've been like earlier in the week. But as you said a couple of times already, we are looking like we're going to get rain in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and it's still 10 degrees cooler than it was at any stage over the weekend, or over the week so far. Mike Conway ahead of Sebastian Buemi, and of course that left rear on the number 8 car only did 8 laps because they had a puncture, so that is part of one set that they will not get to use again. But Buemi is right up behind the leader, and here we go, pass for position. He's got DRS open. He doesn't have DRS open, obviously. But he's...
Is this the first time we've actually seen these cars so close together during this race as well?
Yes.
I was about to say, what's going on here is because, of course, we had the puncture for the 8 car. There are effectively going to be about a pit stop apart when the sequence blends out the other way.
Now then, having mentioned earlier on that Giancarlo Fisichella was going extremely well in GTE Am, and in fact was leading. The car is currently in 4th place, and I said he hadn't yet attracted the attention of the stewards. He has obviously now attracted the attention of the stewards, and the car has been handed a penalty. And
it's another fine Le Mans tradition maintained.
Well, another fine racing tradition. Let's hear what the Toyota team have to say. Mike Conway, the race leader, has been on the blower.
No, they changed only one. They changed only one.
Ah, he's asking, did they change tyres? Changed only one. So through goes the number 8 car, Sebastian Buemi, double Le Mans winner in the last 2 years, twice in the last season. And he goes through into the lead over Mike Conway. But as you said, Graham Goodwin, they are on a different pit stop strategy because of that tyre change. And that one worn tyre may come back to make a bit of a difference between the number 8 and the number 7 car. Confirmation, by the way, from Dempsey Proton, the number 88 car is the first retirement of the race. It completed just 8 laps.
That's really sad. 9 laps since number 8 actually made that stop for the single tyre, the punctured tyre. So another 5 laps before we see the 8 back on pit road, at which point the 7 will continue.
So a big difference in fuel weight in the cars in that case, so you would expect that Mike Conway gradually, as the fuel comes off, will go a bit quicker.
Now, did they top the 8 up with fuel? I guess they did, because he was in there. Alan's putting his thumb up, so yes, we're guessing on that. So number 8 leads from number 7. Rebellion 3rd and 4th, by Coles in 5th. Jackie Chan DC Racing leading in LMP2 for Goodyear, ahead of Graf, United, High Class, and United's 32 car. And then the Duquesne team in 11th place overall. That is 6th in LMP2. Make that 5th because Will Stevens has come onto the pit road. And looking down, Aston, Ferrari, the 1, 2, 3 in the GTE Pro class. As we head towards the 2-hour mark.
Tony Wielander now is by the 2nd Porsche. In fact, Michael Christensen also by Gian-Maria Bruni.
Yeah, so the Porsches are hanging out the back of the GT Pro field.
So it's a little bit sad to see that, because we'd love to see a nice tight battle between all the manufacturers.
Hey, listen, it's not going to be warm and dry for the rest of the race, so who knows how it's going to swap.
And we do know that the Porsches are good in the wet conditions.
Yep. 88 Dempsey Proton, that is out of the race. MR severely delayed, as is the 60 Iron Lynx car. Aston Martin 1-2 in GTE Am. As we look down on the Toyotas, number 8 has gone by, but number 7 is right there as well, down the inside. Wow, into the Porsche curves. Did somebody just say to Mike Conway, you can use multi-21? What happened there? No, that was 8 going by Conway. So Conway got back past.
Or was that a replay of the...
That is a replay of the pass. Yes, it is. So we didn't see that shot before. For those of you yelling at your telly, I was looking at the pictures in the middle, not at the replay logo at the top left. Black and white flag for Kenta Yamashita, for Nobu Yamanaka in the Eurasia Motorsport car, which has had a couple of high-speed side steps to the chicane. WeatherTech versus Risi, 2 regular IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series contenders, and the WeatherTech car goes by and squirrels its way through the chicane ahead of the Risi car, and that was a change for 5th place. Tony Wielander ahead of Sebastian Bourdais.
He's passed 3 cars in the last few laps. That's old Tony, yes. So there's a bit of speed in that car.
Duquesne versus G-Drive, and this is Tristan Gomidi ahead of Jean-Eric Verne. The Orica ahead of the Aurus, which is essentially an Orica with a different chassis plate on it. And just ahead of him is Alex Brundle, who is in 4th place in the United Autosport car. Just behind is which of the Rebellions? That is the number 1 car, I think, isn't it? Being driven by Bruno Senna. Straight down the inside, it is Senna's yellow helmet inside. And Matt Griffin in front in the Ferrari, the Am Class car. Another car run by AF Corsa, one of the 762 they've got in the race, the number 55 Spirit of Race Ferrari. And the deal here, Peter, when you're in a GT car with fast prototypes coming past you, is not to lose time.
Exactly, yeah, you almost, it's better to just lift out and cost yourself half a second rather than cost yourself a second or 2 seconds if you fight them.
Just watching as well the way in which the Rebellion is dealing with the traffic here, goes back to the Duquesne car. It's all about momentum there as well in comparison with the Toyotas. It doesn't have that cartoon-like acceleration out of the turns. Needs to keep the speed up to produce a lap time. That's where the biggest advantage of the Toyota will be getting to race running comes.
On board with the Jota car, this is another of our Goodyear shod runners, Antonio Felix da Costa. Portuguese driver chasing down the Swiss. Simon Trummer ahead of him in the Algarve Pro Racing car. This is a very tight battle. Look, the Senior Tech car dives into the pit lane. I was just about to say that he's closing right up to this, trying to unlap himself. But into the pit lane comes Andre Negrão at the end of his second stint.
And a huge lock-up to the speed limit line there for Negrão. Huge.
Number 1 Rebellion just diving through in third place. Not quite enough room to get by the Project 1 car of your own Blake Molan. Late. Here we go. There's an apex there somewhere, but he ain't going to make it. Well, Peter, that's always the problem when you're in the quick cars lapping in traffic, isn't it? You've just got to make the moves. Again, same deal as with the slower cars. You don't want to lose any time in traffic.
That's it, yeah. I mean, it's such a fine line sometimes. And as this race goes on and, you know, one or two, three, 4 cars start to drop out, it just makes life a little bit easier for you when there's fewer cars on the track.
Oh! Again, past the Red River car, which appears to be the TCR Jammer car in almost every LMP2 battle. Just happens to be in the way. Going by the number 11 Euro International car of Eric Maris, so there's been a driver change there, and squeezing down through the middle, Kenti Yamashita. He does know a gap when he sees one, doesn't he? Even half a gap, goes by the Iron Dames, goes by the Euro International car, and he stretched his legs away from the G-Drive car of Jean-Eric Verne. That was Duquesne car, wasn't it?
That's Gomondi. That's Gomondi.
Yeah, well,
they're pretty similar, but Tristan Gomondi looking very racing, but he's looking to get a bit of clean air, isn't he?
Yeah,
ahead of that chasing car.
He's done a great job. He's really opened the gap up on Jean-Eric Verne. It was under a second. It's now more like 3.5 or 4 seconds into Duquesne car. And I think we saw the beginning of a move from Antonio Felix da Costa through the S's on the Algarve Pro car of Simon Trummer. Hasn't come off for him yet. Riding on board with our race leader, Sebastian Buemi, into the pit lane. Not into the pit lane, into the pit lane.
Yes. That's early.
Yep. Well, don't forget.
That feels early to me.
Out of sequence a little with the number 7 car. Talking about a sequence, by the way, 37, the Jackie Chan DC racing car, they took an opportunity to put themselves out of sequence with the whole LMP2 field so they weren't stacking up with everyone else. Alan's flapping and waving.
It's okay, we're just communicating through the medium of international sign language.
My teacup appears not to be on my desk full of tea.
Comments on the radio? Equal no tea.
I think what we call a management lesson there.
It is.
It does make a fine cup of tea, though.
I'm refreshed. It's Orica. It's the 25 car to the outside. Up the inside, though, goes the Toyota Sport car. That's
the move he tried to make half a lap ago on the Algarve Pro car, and he squeezes through.
Well, it's happened twice on this lap, actually. He's gone by him and gone by him again, so that's been something of a bit of a battle, but away he goes.
So the Toyota Sport car goes by Simon Trummer. There's the Dragon Speed garage on our right as we saw it. The blue number 21 car, and on the left-hand side, the white car crew. And the 92 Porsche, as the fuel lurk burns off, starting to come back into it a bit. Don't forget, though, this car with 4 new tyres and a fresh driver at the last stop, Seb Bourdais, on the tyres on which he started the race 90 minutes ago in the Risi Competizione Ferrari.
We talked about that 2016 race with Ford versus Ferrari. Well, the man aboard this car, the 82 car, Seb Bourdais, was in that winning Ford at the time and stands, well, with the potential at this race, the only man to win a race for Ford and Ferrari at Le Mans.
Now, I was wondering whether Porsche might be able to trim the car out for a bit more top-line speed, but look, when you get a head-on shot of these cars coming towards you...
It's bye-bye time, isn't it?
Yeah,
the rear wing is almost generating lift. It's so far canted back. I mean, it's generating no downforce, and no downforce means no drag. Look, that's the red and white. That's the underside of the wing. Look at it when you get a high shot. The top side of the wing is not red and white.
Bourdais made a mistake there. And that's the Porsche through. Here comes the 8 car. Wow.
Yeah, momentarily the Porsche goes through. See, the problem with the 8 car, though, is he ran off the side of the main part of the road onto the side of the road.
But watch him close straight back in again.
Yeah. Every time a prototype goes over, or anybody else goes off the main racing track, they're onto bits that don't get swept because they're gravelly and dirty and mucky, and that's where debris lurks. Every time you have to put wheels off to go past, Peter, you're risking the chance that you might pick up some debris and pick up a puncture. Well, the Risi Ferrari right behind that 92 Porsche, closing in the Euro International car. This is the yellow and green car, one of 2 teams that are racing an LMP2 car for the very first time into Europol competition, rather. Matavos Isakayan in the yellow and green car into Europol, and Nielsen racing an LMP2 car for the first time. Nielsen in 15th in LMP2 with Alex Kapadia at the wheel. And the into Europol car flying on straight through the chicane, Matt Griffin. Just a glance in the mirror probably to see where the LMP2 car was, and at the wrong place. Back again with our G-Drive versus Duquesne battle, and Jean-Eric Verne closing in on Tristan Gomedy. Gomedy just sort of half a generation ahead of him up the single-seater ladder, 4 or 5 years ahead of Jev. Maybe 5 or 10, in fairness, I guess. Tristan Gomedy racing in top-flight single-seaters, as did Jean-Eric Verne before becoming a sports car racer. Some great views from overhead for those of you watching at home. One of the bittersweet bits of this year's Le Mans is that you'll be able to see probably quite often the empty campsite where you might otherwise be. And the absence of spectators, understandable, but very much felt as a missing part of the jigsaw puzzle this season by the teams and drivers.
Puncture for the 92 Porsche. I'm told that car is going to be coming in any moment now. Front right.
So much for getting by the Ferrari. When the Ferrari made a mistake, Porsche now have to come in and sacrifice another tyre. Michael Christensen stays in, fuel goes in, and the tyre will be changed.
Just a thought, we saw Bourdais effectively oversteering, we thought, through the second chicane. Was he avoiding debris? Is that why there's a puncture? Did he avoid debris that the Porsches then hit?
Or has the Porsche run out wide, as we saw the Toyota doing, to get round the 2 of them and just picked up some debris from the side of the track? The problem is when you've had 2 or 3 races already today, there are bits and bobs lying around that the marshals can't spot with the naked eye.
And the 92 car did have a full set of tyres on the last stop, didn't it? Whereas the 91 car only took 2 new tyres.
There's a Goodyear airship. Graham Goodwin is going to get a great view, a unique view of Le Mans from there. And the 91 Porsche also being handed a black and white flag for track limit abuse. Graf under pressure. And this is for the lead of the race. Felipe Albuquerque pulls out of the slipstream in the United Autosports number 22 car. The more blue on his red, white and blue. Goes the long way around the outside. No. James Allen says no. And right behind is the 3rd placed high-class car number 33, Kenji Yamashita. So that is behind the green and yellow car. 1st, 2nd and 3rd. And that miscue by Albuquerque gives Yamashita a run. Albuquerque now sticking to the driver's left. That's the inside line. Down to the second chicane. Yamashita on the inside, but Albuquerque, I beg your pardon, down to Mulsanne corner. Yamashita on the inside. Albuquerque with more grip and the momentum to go around the outside. Yamashita had to pull his nose out of that hole. Oh, the car guy's Ferrari of Kai Cozzolino goes off. And through comes Alex Brundle. Joop van Uitert helmeting up. He's getting ready for a driver change, so we should see LMP2 cars coming in soon. Patrick Pilet in the pits for IDEC Sport. He's now 20th in LMP2. Let's hear from Albuquerque.
I mean, those cars around you have done the same amount of laps as what you have on those tyres.
That was the voice of Gary Robertshaw, who heads up the engineering lineup at United Autosports. Next up, the voice of Ben Constanduros, who will be leading the team through the next couple of hours.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Just one quick thing. I'll say these words, and I'm not really very confident of them. We're going to say them anyway. I think Felipe Albuquerque is a little rattled here. He's not expecting this. He was
Reading
not
between the lines, yes.
I think he was expecting, with what he thought he got underneath him and what he thinks he's putting into that, to be dominating this race, and he simply is not. James Allen doing a great job at the front of the race, having not changed the tyres on that car, and Kenta Yamashita is showing just how good he is. Absolutely, he's going to be a future Toyota factory driver, without a shadow of a doubt, in World Endurance Championship. Already a champion in Super GT, and I think at the moment the Portuguese star is surprised by not being where he expected to be in this competition.
And every time we've seen Kenta Yamashita get into that high-class racing machine, he has been one of the fastest LMP2 competitors throughout all of our practice sessions. The car itself hasn't necessarily featured at the top of the timing screens when he's not been in. Well, that's a nice little slow-mo, a little bit of opposite lock, and then a little bit of understeer having corrected. That is James Allen in our lead car, and another little bit of traffic for these guys to contend with the 95 Aston Martin being caught just in the wrong place for our lead car. Graham Goodwin heading up to the blimp for the next couple of hours. So Jamie Campbell-Walter joins us in the box.
Hello, hello. What's been happening then?
You've been watching, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
1 hour on, 1 eye on this, 1 hour on something else.
Yeah, I had a nice lunch, watched the start. Quite surprising to see how many problems there were in LMP2 in the first few laps, I thought. Shame, big shame for Tommy Branning, a Porsche Junior in the Porsche, because, to be honest, he was just avoiding action.
I think so, unless it feels terrible. No, it doesn't feel terrible. It's just understeer and oversteer. Okay.
General lack of grip then.
Yeah. And a little bit less kind of frantic, that message. That was more of a discussion rather than a, what am I doing? Why am I not going as fast as I should be? But he is not. He's slightly dropping back from James Allen right now on pace as we see it. And Yamashita did have a sniff going into Tetra Rouge that last time. Behind this battle for the first 3 positions in LMP2 is the next of our United Autosports cars. Alex Brundle just 2.8 seconds back from this group right now, and running on his own with a decent gap to the next car. In fact, you can see him in the back of shot there, and there's no other LMP2 car for another 9 seconds before you get to the battle between Gomendi and Verne that we saw a little bit earlier on.
Oh yeah, let's see if Alex can close up over the course of the next few laps.
Great to see the top 4, isn't it? So close after an hour and a half, just over an hour and a half of racing, and the top 3 really nose to tail.
Now, Dragon Speed in the pits, being refueled. Juan Pablo Montoya was in that car. And it's getting a full service. So do we think the double stinting of the Goodyear tyre worked out for... it was Jackie Chan's car that did that. They've actually pitted for their second stop. Perhaps a little bit early than they should have done, because the Goodyear didn't make it the full double stint at this point.
Time will tell.
We'll have a look at the computer here and see exactly what kind of laps they could do.
I know the Gabby Aubrey car pitted just out of sync just because it was tight in the pit lane. So,
and the same for the Jota car as well. DC Jackie Chan 37 machine. And when you saw all the cars lined up pre-race in pit lane, nose to tail, there really wasn't a cigarette paper's width between any of them, with all 60 or 59 cars lined up in the pits. Naturally, they hopefully don't all come in at the same time, but still, when you've got cars around you coming in at the same time, as we saw for the first stint, on the jollies and being moved around, and you lose time by doing that.
Will Stevens having a little look at who's that in Serengeti, isn't it?
Yes, in the Celtar racing machine. Pitting for Tristan Gomendy, and the Panis Racing Nicolas Yamin as well. So the LMP2 cars now getting to the end of their stint.
Alex Brundle now just 1.4 seconds behind Yamashita.
Yeah, Brundle's last lap a 31 as opposed to a 33 for the top three, so he really did take a decent chunk of time out of the guys ahead as the fuel burns off, and he's obviously got tyres on that car at the end of this particular stint. They are all Michelin runners at the head of the field right now.
In answer to your question, it does look like the Goodyear runners and the Michelin runners are all doing 10 laps per stint, so there's no issues with the Goodyears. It's absolutely fine. It seems that they can match the Michelin.
The big surprise for me, I think, at the moment is the two Pro Porsches in GT Pro. They look pretty quick. Yesterday, Thursday and Friday, I didn't have any reason to think that they would be this far behind after just an hour and a half of racing. Very competitive teams, very competitive cars, great drivers, and yeah, we heard, I think it was Kevin Estra earlier saying, struggling in a straight line, and cars good in the corners.
That's visible. Yeah, you can see that.
That is the 11 Euro International car of Eric Maris off the road. Let's see what happened to him.
Oh,
he's kind of got scared off the road, didn't he, by the Ferrari? Almost looked in his mirrors and saw there was somebody there and thought, oh, I'll get out of your way.
Onto the little escape road. So here we are, 1, 2, 3, 4 in LMP2.
So back with the Porsche story, we have just seen the 92 car with a puncture. Michael Christensen back aboard that. That car had a puncture in his hands in free practice as well on the rear. It was seemed to be debris in free practice. They've also said it's debris in this particular session as well. So those two Porsches have both done 2 pit stops, because we've also seen the second car just change from Bruni to Richard Lietz. The rest of the Works Pro machines, if you like, still have yet to owe us another stop, as we've got double waved yellows at Marshall Point 5, and it looks like Eric Maris may have stalled on the as he came across the gravel, because he was absolutely running fine when he went across the gravel, but now seems to have ground to a halt. At the moment being dealt with under double waved local yellow, and now we get the 33 car into the pits. Yamashita is followed in, and he's followed in by Alex Brundle. Yeah. So Alex was right on the tail of them by the end of that. That was a great second part of the stint for Brundle.
James Allen stretching his legs a bit as well. Just you know, he was under a lot of pressure from Albuquerque a little bit earlier on, and in the end he's quicker and he's just driven away.
Last laps for them, 33.0 for Albuquerque, sorry, for James Allen, and 32.7 for Albuquerque. It's funny, isn't it, throughout your stints as a driver, you quite often go through phases.
This could be the chance, though. This could be the chance. Yellow flag out.
Yeah,
he's pulling the move off during.
He's backed out.
Best not to do that.
They also needed to be careful of the GT car ahead of them. They needed to back out of it to not overtake him under yellow flags. And of course, they had much more momentum too. So there was a run going on there for Albuquerque, but the yellow flag scuppered it.
I think that was a case of James Allen actually backing off for the yellow, and Albuquerque taking a big advantage, actually, because he was a good second and a half behind him.
And of course, James Allen didn't want to pass the GT car ahead of him either, so would have needed to have backed out a little bit too. Although they actually had passed the zone. The zone is through the S's. So by that point, they were able to overtake at Tetra Rouge. Although they were on the exit, they could have passed, because Marshall Point 6 is on the entry.
But just looking at the average lap times from those 4 front-running LMP2 cars, and it is Albuquerque who's maybe on average about half a second slower than them. That's why it kind of compressed like that, and then James Allen started to draw away. So as we talked about, he sounds like he's getting a little bit frustrated on the radio. The car's not as quick as he wants it to be.
You go through phases, though. I was talking about it earlier. You go through phases as a driver throughout the stints. You know, what's he in his 3rd stint? You know, the car feels good, then it suddenly, you know, you go out after your fuel, or it's light on fuel, and you're not so comfortable as a driver. So you just back it off a bit so that you don't make a mistake. And Felipe's a very experienced guy. James Allen, obviously not so experienced as him. 2nd year at Le Mans, maybe did LMP3 or rode to Le Mans once. So actually, James Allen doing a great job for a young guy.
Saw the Euro International car being pushed behind the wall there. They've been asked to have a look at Discord, which they now use as their method of communication with race control. And it was a bit of a weird one, wasn't it? Because the car kind of perhaps got a little bit squirrely, and then he headed straight into the gravel trap and then stopped. So we initially, I was perhaps a little mean to say he was scared off the track, and maybe there was an issue with that car.
Well, he made it to the escape road, so he could have actually driven back on if there was no issues.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
As you say, I think there was something wrong.
Ferrari versus Aston Martin. Battle for 4th position. And the Aston Martin on the outside line going into the 2nd chicane, so he's not going to quite be able to do this. This is Maxime Martin, who's just come out of the pits and come straight into the battle with Miguel Molina.
Interesting that, isn't it? The Aston definitely comes off the corners quicker, is better in the first half of the straight, but then the Ferrari, the Aston was almost dead level with it, and then the last sort of 300 meters before the braking point, the Ferrari just ekes ahead a bit. Obviously, the Aston is full of fuel, though.
Yeah, that was our leading Aston Martin before the pit stops, as we've now got the first 2 in LMP2, the first 3, in fact, in LMP2 now in pit lane. So Jean-Eric Verne, Philippe Albuquerque and James Allen. We are going to see a driver change for United Autosports in the 22 car.
Hansen getting in.
Now, Hansen, the least fast, but he is very, very fast, of the 3 runners.
Ooh, careful. I've seen him be pretty good at some races.
Okay, he's least
experienced. Yeah.
Ideally, that's the whole point of it, but sometimes it doesn't quite work like that.
Well, he's come in, done it properly, and earned his stripes, and doing a great job. And of course, Felipe and Paul di Resta have helped him an enormous amount to get him up to speed, because it's within their interests as well.
So where will they come out in comparison to the cars that pitted a few laps before? Now, the Aston Martin and Maxime Martin is one of those GT Pro cars that has now pitted for a 2nd time, and the others are now in the pit. So Collado, Nicky Thiem and Tony Vielander, the top 3 are all in pit lane. How will they come out when these 2 get to the front straight away? Because they're all not locked again. And actually, the Ferrari has got a little bit of an advantage now, Miguel Molina, over Maxime Martin. But that was Maxine's first lap out of the pits. And I think they are going to easily take the lead of Pro Class, with all these pit stops now being shaken out. WeatherTech still in pit lane. Alessandro Pierguidi takes over the 51 car. That's made its way back out onto circuit. Waiting to see who's aboard the Aston Martin and the WeatherTech car when they leave pit lane. Marco Sorensen in the 95 now.
I think James Allen stayed in the car according to the timing sheets, and Phil Hansen's a change of strategy there for, not change of strategy, but different strategies on driver stint time.
It's like a door rubber that's not quite fitted on the TF Sport Aston Martin, just being either replaced or refitted. You'll end up with a little bit of weird turbulence going on just behind the driver's head there if it's not quite fitted correctly. Discussions at AF Corsa. Concern at AF Corsa, perhaps? Not sure we've got any native Italian speakers in the booth. So with it all shaken out, all of our LMP2 cars, sorry, now having taken 3 pit stops, Will Stevens leads the class, and according to the timing screen, just 3 seconds ahead of James Allen in the Graf machine. And then it's Antonio Felix da Costa and Phil Hansen, with Job van Utrecht in the 31 machine now.
So yeah, we're just hearing from Alex in the pit lane that the Porsche was debris. So yeah, going back to James Allen and Philip Hansen, Hansen has taken on new tyres because they've changed driver. James Allen has stayed in the car and has obviously now a big gap to Allen because he just did fuel only.
And those are the two together, the two United Autosports we just saw running together as we go back into pit lane. And new Michelin tyres for Cool Racing, who've had a very successful road to Le Mans.
What'll be interesting for me now is to see what sort of pace James Allen has in his 4th stint versus Phil Hansen in his 1st stint, but on new tyres. Same, obviously, both of them with the same tyres, both running the Michelin, whereas the Goodyear seems to still be going strong.
Goodyear in the lead of the race with Jackie Chan DC. Let's not forget that. Also running for Jota, Antonio Felix da Costa in 3rd position on a Goodyear as we see the 54 car being wheeled into the garage. Castellacci was aboard that car. Now, what are they looking at? Something at the front end. Oh, is that the air conditioning or cooling pipes? They're pulling off some pipes. As we now see Mike Conway in pits for Toyota. Slightly offset to the 8 machine in terms of strategy. And that is Mike's 4th stint aboard a wheel. He did take the start of the race. And here comes the 8 machine now towards the line. They will be pretty close together when this all shakes out. And Mike putting in a good stint, but loses the lead of the race for the moment to Sebastian Buemi. With the more momentum comes past. It was a good in-lap for Mike Conway. Best final sector of his race so far as he put the car into the pits.
And as the rubber goes down and the track quickens up after the overnight rain.
Yeah, so we've had completely dry running throughout the whole of the practice sessions until this morning. So 2 or 3 days of solid rubber laying and then all washed away with overnight rain last night and into the warm-up this morning with a brand new green track once more. And so all of that kind of set up and making the car feel great under lots and lots of rubber on our running on Thursday. We had 3 free practice sessions and a qualifying session on Thursday. And they would have been working towards getting the cars working well in those conditions, but those conditions no longer really exist. The air temperature is nowhere near how hot it was on Thursday, and the track does not have as much rubber down by the end of the day.
One thing that looks apparent with the P2 cars, we've got Nick Tandy in the G-Drive Racing by Algarve car, which was Ollie Jarvis's car, and he's actually stopped 1 extra time, and we had information that the Goodyear tyres on that were shot. So there is an issue. We've also got Will Stevens in the lead right now, but he's due for a stop within the next lap or two. He's also on Goodyear tyres. So it does seem that the Michelin tyres may be slightly better for the car right now. Different conditions that we've seen than the past few days, so a lot to play for at the moment.
On board with Phil Hansen, who is now behind his teammate Job van Uytterich. So 32 ahead of 22. And they are a decent gap. Oh, actually, they're in 2.8 seconds behind Antonio Felix da Costa ahead, but a little bit of traffic for you in the Porsche curves. Now he can go around the outside of the iron dams, and he manages that quite nicely, but there was a little bit slowed up. And let's hear from Phil Hansen now what he has to say. That was a very short message. I think he said pretty grainy.
Pretty breezy, was it?
Pretty breezy.
I don't know.
No.
It could have been anything. It could have been pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. Well, this is the battle of the two silvers in the United team, and both of them wanting to prove who's the fastest, both the least experienced in both cars, but of course teammates. So number one rule, do not touch or take each other out. Here we go, we're probably going to see the move. Ow.
Well, that's pushing, and that's not how they swapped positions, is it? Because 32 is already ahead of 22.
That was just Phil making a little mistake on the exit of Indianapolis.
Yeah, you've got to hit your marks at Le Mans. Make sure you don't make those kind of errors, because you put a bit of gravel onto your tyre and then run that, and that's a risk of debris, if you like.
Risk of puncture, yeah.
Well, yes, but I was being politically correct for our friends at Michelin. They don't like the word puncture.
The teams will be calming them both down and just saying to Phil's engineer, will be saying, you know, take it easy, mate. Doesn't matter. You know, if you lose a couple of seconds to your teammates, not a problem. Of course, you'll be thinking, I'm not going to lose 2 seconds to my teammate.
Good opportunity, though, to sit and see the marks that your teammate are hitting, knowing you've got the same car, you've got the same tyres, in theory, than the guy in front of you. A good learning experience as well for Phil Hansen. But at the moment, yes, he's not quite sticking the car down the inside there, and he'll lose time through the chicane now, but sitting behind the Ferrari. Very polite with the Ferrari there.
Yeah, the traffic will always ebb and flow, and you know, you sometimes win with the traffic. You get the tow, you get past before the braking point, and that's happy days. And then we saw the opposite there for Phil. You're not quite alongside, you don't want to take the risk, and you have to follow the Ferrari through the chicane, and you lose a second and a half maybe.
And that was Charlie Hollings getting aboard for his outlap in Red River Sport, the car which was effectively the front end written off 2 nights ago. They rebuilt that Ferrari, the whole front end, and it's a debut for Bonamy Grimes alongside the very experienced Johnny Molam in that particular machine, running in 15th in GT Am right now. Now that's the Iron Dams car, and is that a battle for position? Don't think it is.
No.
Rahal Freya is aboard the Iron Dams, and that was the I think it may have been
5th and 6th. Yeah.
Battle for 5th position, but they're saying Matteo Cressoni, so it's not the Iron Dams car at all. It's an Iron Lynx car instead. They haven't made it that easy for us. I thought there was only one purple Iron Lynx car, because there are a couple of Iron Lynx cars that look almost identical to each other. Into the pits. That is our was our leading LMP2 car.
So he's already on his 4th stop now. All the other cars have stopped 3 times.
And not getting out the car either, Will Stevens, staying aboard.
Are the tyres going to stay on?
It looks like there are. There's not a huge amount of panic going on.
So he's happy with his Goodyears. A good sign for Goodyear, that.
Remember, this car is out of sequence, and the team choosing to do that to make sure they have the ability to get in and out of the pits cleanly. We're coming up to 2 hours of action here at Le Mans, and for the moment, a very cool, calm and collected first 2 hours. Everything has been pretty much, I mean, reliability-wise in that first couple of laps is a bit questionable, but in terms of sporadic and erratic driving, everything seems okay. So James Allen now in the lead on the timing screens with a 16.8 second advantage over Jota. Now, the reason why he's now about 30 seconds ahead of the United Autosports car that they were fighting with before the stops is this is the second set of tyres for Graf, whereas United did change their Michelins.